Let's read stories about terrible people. Yippee!
Have you ever listened to a person talk for less than a minute and known you weren't going to get along with that person? What did they say? Yes. This guy hopped into our Discord group a few months back. He was a friend of a friend who didn't think just to add him to our server, and instead added him to our group chat. We all hop into a call, and the first thing he does is make some remarks that are very politically sensitive, sent some graphic photos, and made some inappropriate remarks. Didn't expect to meet someone and have him offend 6 people in the span of 10 minutes. Are you sure you're not just jealous of his efficiency and multitasking skills? They told me, yeah, all women are bitches, you included, no offense. Within the first 2 minutes of knowing me. Right, because if you say something shitty going, no offense, means it wasn't shitty. Parent of one of my kids' friends at school said there was a mouse in their house and his wife wanted to kill it, but he didn't want to kill any creatures. He wants to make friends with them instead. But wife insisted, so he threw his shoe at it and eventually managed to hit it. But it wasn't dead. So he threw his shoe at it another 4 times. It still wasn't dead, so he poured boiling water over it to kill it. It still didn't die, so he poured boiling water over it again. It still wasn't dead, so he decided to leave it alone in the hopes that it would peacefully pass away. The logic of being too squeamish to kill something and instead decide to torture it to death slowly in the most agonizingly painful way absolutely blew my mind. I also don't enjoy killing creatures, but prefer to slowly torture them to death. If you kill them right away, where's the sport? Years ago, me and my husband at the time went to see a movie with an older colleague of his. Before the movie, we had dinner at a chain restaurant, steakhouse type place. Staff on the floor was all in their 20s. I never met this man before, but in the first few minutes of sitting down and looking at the menu, he very confidently told us how he came down there a lot and flirted with the female staff because they loved the attention. The best part? His daughter worked there. All I could think of is how I would literally cringe myself through the floor if I was 20 and my 50-year-old father came to my place of work and perved on my coworkers because he didn't understand that they only put up with him because they're paid to do so. Mauser, shut the fuck up! That's some old school misogyny. I flirt with the female staff because they enjoy it. What about the dudes? Seems kind of bigoted to only sexually harass the women. I was in a job interview once, and the manager cut me off mid-sentence to jump into a weird conclusion. What do you think the performance of this algorithm would be? Oh, it'll be n times... Oh, you think it's going to be n? You think it'd be n? That's ridiculous. There's no way it would be just n. You gotta let me finish speaking. He then cut me off mid-sentence twice more during our conversation. We didn't get along. Dude was a total tool. I hate people who do that. They don't listen to a thing you say. Like they're just counting how long they have to let you talk until they can butt in with their obviously superior comments. Look, man, if I already know you're wrong, why should I wait for you to finish being wrong? In fact, why am I even hiring you in the first place? When I can clearly do it better. Get the fuck out of my office. There are different levels to being a psychic. I'm on the purple level so I can talk to the dead, said a new employee at my previous job. Nope. I'd be too enthralled with the idea of psychic powers being on a color scale. I'd have to ask him what the different color scales were and what they meant. That level of delusion and insanity is just fascinating to me. I know I'm not supposed to ask, but I need to know. It's not for work or anything. What religion are you? An HR manager asked. I belong to the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Lawsuits. Reply to them, can you send me that in an email? HR knows they're breaking the law, but they need to be sure you're worshiping the right Sky Daddy. New guy at work. First coffee break, he started complaining about his ex, who had full custody of the kids for some unfathomable reason. And also how he'd like to slash her throat with a rusty knife. Nice to meet you too. Don't think I'll be taking breaks with you. It was nice of him to clear up why his wife divorced him and why he couldn't be with his kids. She showed up to a little get-together, and the person who invited her said that they would be taking bets on who could sit with her for more than 30 minutes. $10 per person. Winner kept the pot. I assumed they were just being rude and planned to tell her of her friend's plans as soon as she showed up. She walked in, looked at me, scoffed, and asked if the gray car outside belonged to me. I said, yes. She told me that with the money that car cost, I could have bought something nicer. Okay, well, whatever. I went to get a drink and sat to watch the crowd gather around her. I already didn't like her, but she went on to tell everyone about how she could never date someone who had a crappy credit score or couldn't pay off their vehicle after buying it. Someone who wanted to quit the contest asked for a cigarette. She opened up her purse and showed everyone a fresh pack of smokes, and then told everyone why she doesn't smoke, and why anyone who asks for a cigarette is either too broke to buy them or doesn't plan ahead of time. The guy asked her for one of her cigarettes. She said no and put them back in her purse. She talked about all the cars she bought. Basically, her parents would co-sign for her and pay the car off to build her credit. She would then give them a few thousand to pay them back. She was nuts and wouldn't stop talking. I disliked her, but I was also fascinated with her. She was super weird. Yeah, I can understand a fascination with strange and oddity type people, definitely. Update. So I've gotten a few questions about this girl on that night. Also, who is Gina? There was something like 15 to 20 people there, and most entered the contest. I think the pot got up to $120. The winner was just some guy I didn't know. He spent the money on getting everyone McDonald's and beer, so he was pretty cool. She was about 22, 23. She just finished getting her high school diploma because she dropped out to make money, according to her. I think she sold some milkshake things and fitness plans with some MLM, multi-level marketing. For those wondering what happened to her, I'm not 100% what happened to her. She wasn't a friend of mine, but she did show up to a few parties that I was at. She seemed calmer. She used to bring her own bottle of liquor, and wouldn't share, which was kind of funny, because on one occasion they caught her filling her bottle with a bottle of Jack that someone had brought and left on the kitchen counter. But she swore that all she drank was Hennessy and Fireball. If she doesn't smoke, why does she have a pack in her purse? And it's not even for sharing, given someone asked and she said no. So she could relish the look in someone's eyes when she said no. That's so fucking funny. I might have to start doing that. I'm not a user, and no, you can't use my Narcan. I was listening to the NEXIVM podcast, and the clip of the founder saying he has a 225 IQ. If I walked into a room and heard someone say that, I'd walk right back out. I used to brag about my IQ score. It was off of a free internet test. I was 14. I learned better. No, 14 is a good score for the IQ test. Keep telling everybody about it. Working his way towards number 1. An IQ of 14 is definitely an icebreaker. What else are you going to do with your forehead at that point? You can use it as a doorstop. The new neighbor, who after introducing himself pointed to his chest and says, "Instant asshole, just add beer." That's what the family says. No, we're not going to be neighbors, pal. Fuck you, Irv. You were an asshole even without beer. When people claim to be an asshole, believe them. I started my PhD a few months ago, and one of the common starter conversations with postgraduates you meet is, what is your thesis about? Well, I get asked the question, and after describing my dissertation theme, the guy goes, "Oh, I see. Well, mine is actually important," with a very condescending tone. Well, pal, fuck you too, I guess. He asked me, "Do you mind if I smoke?" Then proceeded to take out a meth pipe. True story from my cabbie days. 2 young blokes got in the back, a good halfway to fucked up. One pulls out a cigarette and says, "Can I smoke this?" I said, "Sorry, mate. Smoking's banned at these cabs. It's the law, even for me." And then I added as a joke, "Weird they go to all the trouble with laws and signs and logos for smoking tobacco, but nothing for smoking crack, eh?" No laugh in return, but 2 seconds later, I hear the spark of a lighter. What are you doing back there?" I reply with a lungful of smoke, "Smoking crack." I pretty much just had to shrug it off at that point. I set myself up for that, and I'd left myself fuck all legs for standing on. I retired that joke from my recycled passenger banter. You live and learn. We had just moved into a new house. An older gentleman, he was 65, and I was 35 at the time, came across the street towards me and stuck out his hand. I shook it and he said, "We love new neighbors, as long as they're white." Jesus Christ, Grandpa, you can't say that. He learned I'm a physicist and immediately started talking about infinite energy. Like perpetual motion? In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics. You know what they say, the hardest part of making a 0-point energy machine is hiding the batteries. Me and my first day on the job, on my lunch break, my coworker goes, "Are you Chinese?" Yeah. I don't like Chinese food," and walks away. Don't eat me then. Bruh, Chinese food in the West is nothing like food from China. It's all Americanized and covered in sauce and shit. She was complaining the 15-year-old child who had fled from the war in Ukraine wasn't working hard enough at his dishwashing job. The kid doesn't want to be alone in the dishwashing kitchen all day, not able to speak to anyone. He should be in school, at home, with all of his friends. Of course he's not excited about the stupid dishes. The lack of compassion was astounding. And she was indeed a wretched person, so my initial impression was totally correct. Met someone at the dog park. He got to talking about what we do for work. I screen resumes at my job and deny anyone with an overly complicated ethnic name. That's discriminatory and illegal. They'll never know. I was talking to a girl in college, and she made some remark about, yeah, like when you test your boyfriend to make sure he loves you. And I remember thinking, you seem so normal. It's only normal and totally not toxic to manipulate your significant other to make sure they love you. I went to a teacher conference. My colleague introduced me to a lady from another school. We shook hands and exchanged names. Her first question was, "Are you married?" Which seemed forthright, but not entirely uncommon. When I said yes, she asked if my wife is Chinese. I said yes again. Her response was, "Because of you, one Chinese man will be unable to find a wife." I'd love to say I had a clever comeback, but I was just stunned into silence. My comeback would be, "Are you fucked in the head?" Pretty clever, right? I met one of my new colleagues at a barbecue that was being hosted by our work. I, a man, drove with another coworker, a woman, and a friend of mine. So we arrived together. When I was alone for a moment with this guy, whom I'd never spoken to before, comes up next to me and says, "Yo, dude, you hitting that?" Gestures to my friend, and I say, "No," and she also has a boyfriend. He very exaggeratedly says, "Damn." Yada yada. He got fired 2 years later for sexually harassing an intern. I hate that our boss is a chick. Bitches make the worst bosses. Lunch break of his first day on the job. You know what? I bet she's never heard it phrased that way before, and would appreciate the feedback. Why don't you go tell her before you clock in? Let the neighbor do it. My then manager self-informed a new hire of his next task, which apparently he found beneath him. Jesus fucking Christ on a bike, you can't say that shit, man. Around the lunch table at work, a couple of younger guys, straight out of high school young, are talking about a young female singer. New guy, around my age, says, "I'd take a rape charge for that." Jumping Christ on a pogo stick, "You can't say that shit either, dude. What the fuck?" New guy started at my job. We were outside smoking on first break. Keep in mind, I have never met nor spoken to this dude in my life. He walks up, lights a cigarette, and says, "You know, I think my severe arachnophobia has transformed into arachnophilia. I've been watching a lot of spider hentai while I'm masturbating." And then he began to describe his new waifu pillow he bought, her name, and his plans to marry her. I was speechless. I went to the penthouse party of a guy my friend used to hook up with. This dude gave me Patrick Bateman vibes from his house decor to the way he talked. Total creep. The only time he spoke directly to me the entire party was making fun of homeless people. I did not like him. If you're homeless, just buy a house. No wonder he was making fun of them. If you're too poor to buy a house, just get more money. Come on now. It's simple. My all-time favorite was this girl they had just hired, who would answer any question by responding that she had a fiancé. Like, "Hi, my name is Bill. Where are you from?" "I have a fiancé." Like any of us were gonna bang her in the walk-in cooler if she didn't. They tried to convince me that the Austrian painter had some good points. I think he's in jail now. Actually, the Austrian painter's probably dead by now. My new neighbor moved in and avoided contact for the first week or so before walking over to us while my wife and I were doing some yard work. He says, "I got my lady hollering at me to come to the hospital. She's having our kid." "Oh, congrats," I said. "I hope it's not mine," he says. I strive to be in this happy of a relationship one day.
Thank you so much to anyone who managed to make it this far. Consider dropping a like and or a subscribe and have yourself a day and night. Or don't. I'm not your father.